Malware has been around for, well, almost as long as computers have been around, right? So, but there has been a marked increase lately in malware attacks and ransomware attacks. Mainly because it's becoming less and less required to have any true uh, sophistication, right, or skill to launch a lot of these attacks. A lot of people or organizations, right, that we call script kiddies. They will go out and they will find a prepackaged attack and they will launch it against some organization, and uh, most of the time, right? I mean, they're just doing it to see if it can be done. But we are seeing a large uptick, right, of state actors actually infiltrating or attempting to infiltrate critical infrastructure across the U.S. and across the world. We're seeing that live out in full living color. As a matter of fact, in some of the attacks that have happened during during the Ukrainian war with Russia, both from Russia's side and the Ukrainian side, launching malware attacks against each other. It can be. When it comes to automation, it really kind of depends on what you're automating, right? For a long time, right? Almost as long as I think as I've been doing this, right? We've relied on signature-based solutions, right? To prevent virus attacks and worms and types of malware like that. But with more and more malware being created, we have fewer and fewer signatures available, and that requires organizations to move more into autonomous systems, right, or heuristic systems that can actually learn what right looks like across the environment. And unfortunately, that is kind of cost prohibitive to a lot of organizations. So when you start talking about automation, you start adding layers of complexity and expense that a lot of organizations just really can't shoulder, right? They either don't have the skills on board, working for them, or they can't afford to outsource those skills to a third party. So while yes, automation is I feel important, um, there are a lot of other things, rather than just simply relying on technology that can at least offer you some protection along the way, rather than kind of throwing up your hands and saying, well, we can't afford it, so we're just going to have to take our chances. So I'll try to answer without getting in too much trouble, right? So there are really good malware scanners out there, and then there are really not so good malware scanners, right? So uh, you can pretty much guarantee, for instance, anything in the upper right quadrant of a Garner report is going to be an outstanding tool. But along with that, you're also going to guarantee that that solution is going to cost an exorbitant amount of money. However, the solutions in the bottom left of the Garner quadrants really, they may not be the Cadillac, but they will still get the job done if you have hands on deck that understands what they're looking at, right? So um, it really like a lot of things in this business, it really comes down to it depends, right? It depends on the software that you choose and how well the operator understands what they're looking at when using that particular tool. Well, just simply by nature of doing what I do for a living, I really try to maintain some kind of uh, vendor agnostic point of view, because I don't want someone to take my advice and say, well, Mike said that this is what we need, so that's what we go get, and it's just not work right, for their environment. But that said, I have seen some really good products. For instance, like Big Defender, Acronis, Zone Alarm, right? Those are really good products at a moderate, well, moderate to high price point. that do a really good job when it comes to malware scanning, especially ransomware. They're leveraging, a couple of them are leveraging the power of the cloud, right? So that it's almost like you have a heuristic appliance on your network without having one. What it's doing, what a couple of them do is they leverage feeds from all of their customers, so that when an attack is seen on some network, that it's quickly the signature of that attack is quickly distributed to all the other organizations that subscribe to them. So I mean, it's still a very signature based uh, tool, all three of them. However, a couple of them are acting as if they were heuristic, because they're leveraging the power of the cloud, and kind of crowdsourcing uh, attacks, if you will. Yes, the best offense is a good defense. That is the strategy, right? Um, the hard part with malware, especially some of the more modern or sophisticated attacks that we're seeing, they fall into a category of what we call APTs, or advanced persistent threats. So really, all an APT is it lies dormant on your machine, just kind of sitting there, right, until it's activated. And it can be activated in a day, or a week, or a month, or a year, right? It really all depends on where the command and control is coming from. So that makes it very difficult to know, for instance, where is the safe point for me to go back and start to recapture data. Because the assumption would be you would have to know uh, when that beaconing agent landed on that computer, or within that network. So really, I tell organizations, look, like I started, the best offense is a good defense. So making sure you're doing your backups, right? At whatever schedule you need your backups to be run at. If you need a full backup every day, you need a full backup every hour, right? It doesn't matter. Whatever the organization determines is necessary. Make sure you're checking your backups. Running scans on those backups. To give some surety to the integrity of those backups, and that you're not backing up malware with it. And that requires some level of vigilance, right? Especially if you're using a signature based anti-malware appliance. Uh, you would need to go and scan those backups every time you get a new signature, to make sure that your backups don't include some malware in it. So, but at the end of the day, that's really all you can kind of leverage, right? You can't necessarily trust that, yeah, I found the agent, and I found the offending packet, and I'm just going to extract that packet and think I have it all, because more often than not, you don't, right? And a lot of there have been some fairly sophisticated malware attacks that self-distribute themselves, right? So just because you capture one agent doesn't mean you necessarily capture them all. So at the end of the day, it's making sure the business is viable, making sure the business can continue to thrive. So you have to have reliable backups to go back to whenever you suspect, or you actually get hit with a malware attack, or God forbid, a ransomware attack. So I guess I touched on that a little bit with the first part of that answer. It is the complication is not knowing when that live agent ended up on your network. So you're at the beginning, you really are shooting in the dark, right? You're taking best guesses, as to when anomalies started to be noticed. And a lot of times, and this is something that I try to impart on a lot of the young operators that I've worked with over the years, and that some of them I still work with in what I do today. That you have to look outside the box, right? What the computer is presenting you is only what the computer is telling you what it's doing, but it's not telling you why it started doing it. And those are ephemeral clues that you're going to get from other sources. For instance, going and checking, did we have an uptick on any particular day of help desk requests? That we had an unusual amount of account lockouts, right? We know we get a handful every day or what have you, but it seems to be strange that every Wednesday we have a higher than normal threshold of account lockouts. Well, viewing that in itself doesn't necessarily tell you anything. However, looking at the macro view of it, if we can find a pattern, for instance, that every Wednesday for the last 6 months we have an uptick in account lockouts, well, that usually is an indication that there's something unusual happening on your network, and now you can start to kind of draw back the clock to draw back into, okay, when did this start? And now I can stop shooting in the dark really and narrow my target into kind of maybe a more specific area of the enclave, or a more specific time frame of backups that we have to understand when it started, so I know how to begin recovery from whatever activity is being perpetrated. So I would absolutely say yes. I've had an opportunity to use some, if not all, the skills, right, that I learned in CEH. Uh, especially when it comes to using some of the tools and doing packet captures and understanding how to use the scanners, um, understanding how to read the scanners. What output am I getting? Um, and as I've progressed through my career, I mean, obviously, I'm not on the keyboard every day. I'm more in a supervisory or management role, but it doesn't mean that I'm not using those skills, right? Because also within the CEH, it teaches you to be analytical in what you're doing and how you're doing it and how you're approaching it. And I still use those skills, on a daily basis, and every single day. Uh, One of the most important lessons to take away, especially when dealing with with malware, or with we'll just say any type of sophisticated or benign network attack, is ensuring that you are taking meticulous notes, right? And every 15 minutes, what are you doing? Every hour, what has been accomplished, and making sure your team is taking notes, right, as they go along, so that once the emergency is done, right? Once we've either been able to recover or begin the recovery process, we can start uh, collecting each other's notes, right? Usually given to a incident response manager, to start correlating those notes, so we can put together the after action report, or the post mortem report, to understand what happened, try to figure out how it happened, so we can devise plans on how to not let it happen again, right? And those are all skills that are taught within the body of knowledge of the CEH. So uh, some of them are more overt, right? A lot of people that take the CEH, it's all about being on the keyboard, and then some of them are more covert, right? Well, yeah, you're teaching me how to use these tools, but you're also making sure I understand that I need to be able to have a record of every action that I took, uh, for later action, whether it be just an internal review or an after action, like I said, or maybe we need to get law enforcement involved, and at that point, if we don't have a solid chain of custody, uh, everything else could fall apart. The single best advice I can give you is to be vigilant. Be vigilant. Um, that's what it takes to protect these networks. It takes vigilance. It takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of learning. Right? Never to think that I've reached the mountaintop. I've learned all I need to learn, and I'm good. I strive personally to learn something new every day, and it doesn't have to be in the compute world or whatever, but striving to always be learning and to keep my mind sharp and understand that you're not gonna nobody in this business can know it all. And so that's why our networks are extremely important, right? That there's going to be someone out there that has probably seen something that I haven't seen, but being able to reach out to that person to maybe ask a question is important, right? And it's a skill that unfortunately, I think that a lot of younger individuals entering this field really don't understand the importance of, right? Is building a network, right? The CEH is going to give you a good springboard into doing this for a living, but you need to be able to feed off of other people that have experienced, obviously more than you have at any given point in your career. So, most importantly, being vigilant with protecting the networks, learn new things, and just keep moving. Don't get discouraged. Well, I've given you a little bit of insight into, I guess, some of my experiences that I can share. Right, I spent most of my career working inside the government, so there's a lot of things that obviously I just can't divulge. But yeah, I learned kind of real early in my career to always validate your backup. Um, yeah, I had a position where kind of my job was to make sure the backups ran every evening, that they ran completely and finalized, and they were stored, and they were scanned, and it was just such an automatic function, right? That was one of many other duties that I had, but that particular duty was so automatic that over time I got a little lazy, right? And I didn't check the backups all the time the way I should have, right? I just kind of took for granted what the software was telling me, and come to find out that there was an update to the agents that was that particular piece of software that was running our backups that didn't get pushed correctly. So we had about 90 days worth of backups that were corrupt because they didn't have the correct agent on the system. So again, going back to being vigilant and trying not to let things just become automatic. I learned that lesson. The hard way. Thank goodness, right? We didn't have any need to go back to that particular 90-day period. So there wasn't any actual data loss, but in truth, there was 90 days worth of data for that organization that we would not be able to recover, just simply because I didn't validate the agent version number on some of the systems.